All right, well, what's up, everyone? Hey.
Hey, what's going on?
Not too much. My name is Rob. I'm the executive producer and director of ProjectUX. We are the web show for startups that we bring UX to startups. So we take a startup and have them come on our show and have their user experience reviewed by a group of professional UXers. We call them our UX experts, and they break down a product's interaction design, their visual design, the accessibility, different visual elements, and just overall the user experience. And I've come to learn that this is an incredibly important part of having really just a good product of any type. In the digital space is kind of mostly where, our realm is and traditional UX is, but really, as we've learned, everything has a user experience. Pretty much just about any product or service that you interact with or that you offer, the user experience is primary to being something that you'll actually go back to, or that your users will come back to and have a good experience with and want to share with others. And just to give you a little bit about my background, I went to school and studied film. I always was very interested in film and videography. I graduated from the University of Miami in 2008. And I moved back home to Nashville in 2009 and started my own little production company doing like commercials and music videos and things like that. And I think it was about 2010 or 2011, probably somewhat inspired by the movie The Social Network, that I got bit by the entrepreneur bug. And I guess I did kind of run in my family. I've been doing my own little production company then, but I got involved with some friends in a startup. And it was a startup called Breathalyze, and we attempted to make an app that would measure your alcohol intoxication by taking a video of your eye. So what it would do is essentially try to replicate the follow my finger test that a cop would give you on a smartphone. And what they're looking for is eye shake that occurs when you're intoxicated. So not knowing really anything about what it took to make an app, or, we just kind of got into it with reckless abandon, a wing and a prayer. We went after it. We hired a firm actually in Austin. We developed something, got it out there, caught a little buzz, it was a great idea. And I think one thing that I didn't even know what UX was at the time. And if I knew then what I know now, would have taken a completely different approach. I'll get into a little bit more of the details about that later. But it ended up actually through a wild series of circumstances. I came to Dallas because I got a new person involved who was in this area, and we applied to an accelerator program down here called Health Wildcatters, and that's what brought me to Dallas in 2014. And just want to give a big shout out to Dallas and all the people in the community. I think that's around when I first met Shirag and started getting tapped into the startup community here. And I actually just wrote a little post today about, I focused on the UX community, but the startup community was mentioned as well, and that I think that's a really big part of what we're doing here. And, one of the reasons why Shirag is part of our team too is he is a really great guy in the community here. He loves to be active and do things for people and connect and, have fun with it. And the community is what really drew me to Dallas. And so I decided after this program to move here. And it was a bit of a risk, doing a startup is a risk. And moving to a new city where I basically knew no one was a risk. And actually, when Scott was giving his presentation, I got one of his Nerd Body quotes. I just want to read it real quick because it's super appropriate and we should all take this to heart, right? So, those courageous enough to take risks are the ones who accomplish something in life. And that was from Muhammad Ali, who we can all take some inspiration from, right? And being an entrepreneur is about taking risks. Don't be an entrepreneur if you want to go the safe and easy route. It's neither of those things, but it can be extremely rewarding, even in the failures. My first startup didn't really succeed in, traditional metrics. We didn't, ever become profitable or achieve large rounds of investment. However, it was successful enough that it brought me to a whole new city and changed the whole course of my life. So I don't have any regrets whatsoever. And it was being involved with the community here. I was doing some film work. I ended up meeting someone who had this idea for a project about a show about UX and startups. And Chirac actually even played, as he said, with UX Roast, played sort of a part in inspiring the original seed of this. And it's a long story that I'm actually not going to go into all of the detail of, because there's a little bit of messiness there with an old founder. And I will just say, as you know, if you are doing a startup and you have partners, which you probably should, because doing a startup is really hard and doing it on your own is almost impossible most of the time. Be careful. Startup founder issues are among, if not the leading cause of the reason startups do fail. These could be squabbles over direction of the company, equity is very common, just creative differences, things like that. And don't fall into the trap of, at least I recommend not falling into the trap of trying to set these early expectations of the exact equity split. Very brief plug for the new equity system that I have discovered called Slicing Pie, which is awesome because it's a dynamic equity split model, and you earn as you go and you put in resources, time and money normally being the most valuable things that people have to offer. And it's just a really great system. I actually learned about it from my girlfriend and partner in another business, Deanna, and it's really sort of changed my whole traditional way of thinking of, oh, let's start a startup and we're going to be 50-50 partners. Never do that. Never be 50-50 partners with someone. That's just not a good idea, I promise. You can read a lot more about that in books like Founder's Dilemma. And I really recommend checking out the Slicing Pie system if you're looking for an equity model. It's very adaptable and super cool. So just a little plug about that. So it was 2015 when I started this journey with another fellow, and we produced what was ProjectUX. So Shirley, if you actually go to the next slide, I think it's sort of a little bit about the history here. So we've in the former show, we've done over 20 episodes. We've worked with over 40 startups and 40 experts in 10 different cities across the country. We've actually taken it on tour here. And I'm going to bring up Theresa in just a second here. She's been on board for over a year, and I'm going to give her some mic time in a second. But it's been a real honor to do this because we've gotten to work with some amazing people in the industry. And this new rebirth of it is ProjectUX, and we just released our first episode last week. It's been a wild ride getting here, and we've even just in the short time we've done this new version worked with some incredibly well-known people in the UX community like Jared Spool and Alan Cooper. You may not know who they are, but if you do know about UX, they're pretty awesome, and that's been a real honor. So, it's been a twisty journey, and it always is when you're a startup. It's impossible to see where things go. It's a much less traditional, curve of your growth than if you have a normal job and you try and climb the ladder or go through school and work your way up through the education platform and get into an entry-level job. But that wasn't for me. That really wasn't what I wanted to do. That didn't really speak to me. And I must say that I've actually just kind of recently gotten my first official job along with Theresa. We're both working with our co-host now. Our host, our partner, Brandon Ward, at a firm called Precocity. We're doing UX research at Toyota. And it's a really cool gig. And just to go into UX a little bit, who here knows what UX is? Like if I say, what is UX? Do you know what that means? I don't see a lot of hands raised, which is fine. I did not have any idea what it was until maybe 2 years ago. And even 2 years ago, I knew it stood for user experience, but if I were to really try and define the depth of it, I would have been a bit flustered. And what I've come to realize is that it's a very broad term that encompasses many factors. And in the end, I think it starts with, and if you're doing a startup, I encourage you to always start here. It starts with user research and really understanding your audience, your problem, and what it is that your users want to have a solution be for their problem. This could be the features, and just make sure you don't design a product for yourself. You don't want to be a MyX designer. You want to be a UX designer. You want to make something for your users. You're not going to please everybody, but the best products are ones that please not the most people, but the most people in the niche that you're going for, and that they come and see your product as a leader in that space. And I think that learning about this discipline has been so amazing. And one thing I really like about the show is I've gotten to learn by osmosis from all these people who give advice to these startups, and I edit them, and I listen to them, and I talk to them. And I've gotten to educate myself in this great way because there's just a ton of knowledge out there. And Dallas actually has a great UX community. We did our premiere at Bottle Rocket. We're actually doing some user testing there tomorrow for a startup called NoiseAware. We've also worked at a lab called Project202 here in Dallas, and there's a ton of UX firms. Precocity, like the one that Theresa and I work with, is another one. There's a lot, and I would encourage you to kind of explore that realm. Definitely be involved in the startup community. That's one of our main missions, is to kind of link the startup and UX design communities together because they can really help each other. And having been in a startup that sort of failed in that capacity and didn't vet the problem, didn't go talk to users, did not really design first, then program, we kind of just dove straight in. And again, I don't have regrets, but I've learned now that's not the way to do it. You definitely want to vet the problem, and it's been a great journey. And it was May of last year we actually tried to do a Kickstarter campaign, and having no idea what that took. I'm actually getting ready to do another one with the startup, and I've realized it takes a lot of preparation and work. And we did end up still going on tour, even though we didn't reach our goal. But it was at that party that actually I met Theresa. And I'd like to bring her up here real quick and just have her talk about herself a little bit. So I don't hog the mic too much, because this is a team effort, let me tell you. I mean, it's just us two sitting up here right now, and we do the bulk of the work, I would say. But there are like dozen plus people, Chirag definitely being a huge one here too, so mad shout out to him. Yeah, Theresa, why don't you tell me a little about yourself and your part in all this madness?
It's wonderful madness, I'd say. Thanks for the intro, Rob. Well, my name is Theresa Win, and I have been with ProjectUX back when it was in the Exposed UX days. Like Rob was saying, I met them back when we were about to go on tour. We were launching our little Kickstarter campaign, and so I guess my entrance into the UX field, I come from like a TV and news background, video production, and I heard about these guys who were making a show about UX, and I thought maybe I could help them out, and I saw they were going on tour, and that was a whole other adventure in itself. We traveled to like 10 different cities, 9 cities or so, all up on the west coast, of California coast, and
5,500 miles.
5,500 miles, yeah. And people thought we had like a really cool tour bus or something, and it was actually just Rob's little hatchback. We crammed
They couldn't believe it all fit in there.
I know.
It does.
Yeah, three bodies and all of our bags and equipment and stuff. It was an adventure, but we're back in Dallas now, and I'm really happy to be back in Dallas, and this is where we're filming. And I just want to say a quick word, and this is something we talk about a lot, is how wonderful the Dallas community is. For me so far, for both of us, I think, it's been a really awesome place to launch a career, not just launch a startup, but just launch our careers. Like Rob was saying, we have jobs as UX researchers now, and that was directly from working with Brandon and working on Project UX, and I've just learned so much about UX in the process. And speaking of community, Node is an awesome community. Thanks, Chirag, for putting all this stuff together. Recently, me and my buddy Freddie over there,
He's our new DP, by the way, too. So he helped us out on our last shoot. So major shout out to Freddie.
Freddie's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I met Freddie at a Node event recently, and this was Dallas Startup Weekend, and we sort of launched our own little startup from here. It was something called Hike Nation. It was a hiking app, and what we wanted to do was get people out on the trails and help them just prep for outdoor adventures. People who weren't really used to being outdoors and didn't really know that much about hiking, but knew that they wanted to be outside and get in better shape. We wanted to help people like that. So, in 54 hours over Dallas Startup Weekend, we went out and validated our idea. We talked to a bunch of people at REI and figured out what people really needed who wanted to go out on a hike. So it turned out really well. We won first place in Best UX Design, which is really, really fun. And I couldn't have done it without Freddie and a couple other guys on the team. So I love Dallas, and I love startups, and I love UX now, and it's all because of people like Chirag and building communities like this. So it's been fun.
And again, I know it's a little bit of broken record, but the community aspect, and again, I did literally just write an article about this because I felt it was something that I could speak to most of anything as far as, having some sort of authority on. Not that I have authority, but I just know because I've experienced it firsthand that it has, dramatically changed my life, and getting involved with the community really helped me not only learn, but then get my ideas out there as well, and sort of have it be reciprocated, and bring new people into the fold. Again, like Theresa mentioned with Freddie, that'll happen because of an event that Chirag did here, and then he has a film background, and he likes startups, and we've worked with all sorts of cool people, and sometimes they come in and out, but again, that's one thing I like about what we're doing is it's attracting a lot of people because we have a message to get out and a way to get it out there, and we work with startups to not only help them improve their UX, but also advertise them, and make some show about them and give them exposure. And we're hopeful to work with some startups going forward. Like we've been talking to Scott at NerdBody here, and I love what he does. I like that we're working with startups that I think have good missions. Like our first startup that came out, they have this automated sprinkler system. So it helps you save water and money. So it's like win-win. And I mean, conservation is, I think, a big issue that hopefully a lot of us in this room think about. And our next startup was an immunization and health tracking app. And Scott's doing health stuff as well. So I'm a big proponent of that. And startups, there's so many cool and great ideas out there. But if you don't have a good UX or vet your idea and the solution you're putting forward, then you might just be wasting your time and going in the wrong direction. Head to the next slide real quick. So I think it might just be some of ours. So let me tell you a little bit about the show process. And this is actually in reverse order. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. One quick thing I'll say too is we change, one thing about a startup and really any product, even big companies, is they iterate, they learn, and definitely don't ever just choose something and say, okay, that's the way it's got to be done, I'm going to stick with this forever, unless your metrics are proving that, but even still, you should be testing other things to make sure you're on the right track. So what I said to switch was the first time we did this, we did a usability testing session before, and our in-show audit after. We're doing it in reverse now. So now what we have startups is they come on our show first, and we film it, they talk to experts, we really break down their product in front of the camera with these experts, and sort of, they call it a heuristic evaluation. That's sort of the, nice fancy word for it. And like I said, we break down things like information architecture, which is how you organize and label your information throughout the product. The interaction design, how everything like the interactions and interface works together. The visual design, obviously you got your logos, your colors, your font choices, things like that. And accessibility, this is a really big thing that I've actually learned a lot about. One of our first experts on our first episode has dyslexia. And there's actually a lot of people who have dyslexia or some type of, this guy raised his hand here. I mean, it's just not even uncommon, there's color blindness, especially in men. And there's a lot of things you can do as a designer to make your product more readable, more accessible, maybe for those that are, blind even. And if you do ever have to deal with, if you're ever going to sell your product to the government or have anything involved with a federal or I think even regional agency, you have to be 508 compliant is what they call it, and apply to all these accessibility standards. And what you don't want to find yourself in a position where you have to play a huge game of catch up, totally redesign because you put yourself behind the 8 ball. So that's step one. Now if you could go backwards, because what we do after this is actually what we're doing tomorrow with a startup is we go to a usability lab, and we take a user and we put them in front of the product and we watch them use the product. We walk them through some scenarios, we get their initial impressions on things, and you'd be amazed at what users will fail at or succeed at, but just the issues that they will come across that you may think, oh, this makes total sense, and they'll just fail spectacularly. Or they may point out something to you that you would have never thought of before, and that's the real value of user testing. And one of the things I really like about this new version of the show is how we do this process. We film it. We're making a separate show about it called the UX Lab, which is going to come out later this year. because this is a very valuable tool for startups and their products. And I encourage you, any of you who are working on something, to do it at some point. It doesn't even have to be with us. You can do this yourself, although I do recommend, working with someone on it, and really, getting some expert experience to help you facilitate it. But it's super valuable. We did it at Project 202 before. We're doing it at Bottle Rocket tomorrow. And is there anything you'd like to say more on just the value of that process? Because we're doing a lot of Toyota now, and it's really cool.
Yeah, you made a good point about saying, you can do it yourself. There's a really awesome book. We have a copy of it. It's called "It's Not Rocket Surgery" by Steve Krug. And it walks you through. You don't need a crazy budget to do it, but there is a right and a wrong way to do it. And there's all the tips that you could possibly want in there. So if you want to check that out, let us know, and we can refer you to that.
Yeah, we're putting together a little reading list actually that we're going to try and debut later this year. And I'd encourage you guys all to, if you're not, to check out our website. You can sign up for our newsletter. We send out weekly updates with our videos, and we are going to send one out, today about this event and the UX community in general. Might even put this little video up on there. And it's ProjectUX.tv, and if you want to follow us on social media, it's ProjectUXTV on Twitter and Facebook, and ProjectUX on Instagram. We're trying to be active on all the platforms. Social media is actually a big part of UX too. The stuff you put out there is important. It's part of your brand, right? And your brand is a big part of the user experience and the way your users, connect with you. And I've come to realize social media is a big challenge. All the platforms are different. They have their intricacies, they have their audiences, requirements. Some you can be more, advertising and promotional on a consistent basis. Others you really want to stray from that as much as possible. So it's interesting to, iterate and learn through that. And Chirag's actually been helping us with that some. He's a big Twitter guy. I'm sure most of you guys know that in here. He likes to tweet things. All right, let's continue on. I think we're getting close to the end, then we'll take some questions here. Let's see what we're doing on time. Yeah, maybe I should probably just go into questions. Real quick, the deliverables that we give for a startup, we do, like I said, we do usability testing videos. We do an episode about the UX lab process and Project UX. We also work with a sponsor called Loop 11, and they do online usability testing, and they help us with things like clickstream analysis and just some sort of more quantitative user metrics on a person, how they use like a website or a digital interface. So that can be really helpful. And then we generate a cool report about it so sort of like what the main takeaways are. And that's sort of one of our jobs, is to condense a lot of this information that gets thrown at a startup and put it into actionable things that they can do to improve their user experience. Next. Just very briefly, the return on investment of UX is tremendous, and I encourage everyone to, if you take anything away from this, invest in UX, whatever it is, user research, hiring a firm, hiring a designer. It really just pays to invest in that, because it prevents you from making mistakes down the line, and it will save you lots of money. And some of the biggest companies that are the biggest successes, and you see one little stat here, the top 10 customer experience leaders outperformed the S&P by 43%. Then the bottom 10 generate a negative cumulative return of 34%. And there's actually a ton of stats that aren't on here that are maybe even better than those. So the money you invest in that process will absolutely return. You can return and increase customer engagement, cost savings, and with us, if people are interested in working with us, our job is to help get you exposure with the tech designs to our community. So that's kind of our mission here, and I know we're running short on time. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Yeah, Scott.
You mentioned earlier doing Kickstarter for a customer. Is that part of one of your packages? You do a Kickstarter campaign video, etc., or is that for you guys?
Well, interesting you asked that, because we're sort of two things. We're a UX services provider and a video provider, and we produce all types of videos. So if someone has a company and they want to make a Kickstarter video, great. We did one before. I think the video was fine. We didn't know how to manage the campaign. I'm actually about to work on another Kickstarter campaign that'll come out next month. With the start working on with my girlfriend, and I can give you more info about that if you want to go into it now, because it's a whole conversation. But that's a good question. We do all types of videos.
And we may have talked about it. I just wanted to clarify. We may talk about it.
Oh yeah, no, we'd be happy to work on that with you. Cool. Anyone else have a question about UX or anything? Yes, sir.
Where and when can we watch the episodes?
So the first episode is up now. I recommend you can check it out on our YouTube channel, which is YouTube Project UX, or go to our website. That's got all of our videos. We have a bunch of really cool interviews up as well with some great thought leaders in the community. Some trailers up there, and just various content. We've only released one episode of Project UX in this new format. We filmed 3 so far. They'll probably be coming out about once a month. That's kind of our schedule right now. We're going to do a UX Lab episode later this year, probably the end of the month. And so yeah, check out our website, projectux.tv. It's got it all up there. Nice.
I got you.
Yeah, man. Any more questions? And if not, no worries, come find us. We're around in No. We're probably going to be setting up office here more and more consistently. Try to come through and work here and be in the No community. Like I said, it's great. This community is awesome. No is great. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being a part of our presentation.